bring the energy, he'll do the rest. Martinez and Company, powered by Sports Radio 102.9 The Game.
You're going to hear it right here.
The show starts now.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for tuning in here to Martinez and Company Live. Solo today. Dylan is on assignment or somewhere else. I know he had stuff to do out there in Tampa, but I am Angel Martinez. Thank you for watching Martinez and Company and listening on the Digital Sports Radio app as well. And hello to the gentleman I spoke to last night that was from Canada that went over to Corbett Stadium to watch the home opener of the USF women's soccer team. They were downed last night by the current defending national champs, the Florida Seminoles Women's Soccer Club, down 5-0. I'll get into that a little bit later on. Did not look really bad for USF, even if people try to say other things otherwise on the social medias, but ended up being a challengeful game as Coach Brown had spoken about it prior to an article they had up on the on USF's website. As he said, this will be a match to see how exactly we're going to end up playing for the remainder of the season. So it's only game one. Again, you're playing against the defending champs who were 22-0-1 last season. And so now they start off their season at 1-0. A couple of yellow cards that were handed out late in the game. I'll bring that up later on as well. So overall, a good crowd on hand. A lot of Seminole fans representing with Seminole colors for sure, as half of the stadium on the bleacher seats were filled with Seminole fans. Of course, the rest of the stadium filled out with USF fans. And it looked like a good portion of the USF men's football team was there as well on hand to support the ladies. The men play this upcoming weekend, and then the next game for the ladies is August 18th. Along with that, the Tampa Bay Sun Football Club, they have their home opener coming up this Sunday down there at Tampa, right across from Armature Works. I believe the ticket rate for students is $18 to get in. So that game, their season opener, will be on Sunday at 6 p.m. And we'll get into that a little bit later on as well. But a lot of things that are going on, obviously, in the NFL. Also with NASCAR and Kurt Busch, apparently, who was arrested for a DUI. And I did find a story earlier on. And if it being true, we'll start off with that and then a couple of sounders coming out from the NFL. But retired NASCAR champion Kurt Busch arrested on DWI charges, which those who don't know, it is driving while intoxicated. They also have another one called DUI. It was his driving under the influence. Now, what are the difference between the two? I don't know. To me, it's like if you're getting charged with one, I mean, it's basically the same unless they go by the blood alcohol content. And obviously, if you don't submit to the test, then they'll tell you that, you know, one way or the other, you're going to get arrested anyways. But I might go ahead and tell them that, hey, by the way, I was drinking. So no one likes to admit it, but from what I understand, at times, they will go a little bit lighter on you. Not saying, obviously, if you're belligerently drunk, it'd be a whole different story. But some people have gotten pulled over because of one beer, and they've admitted they had the one beer, and they go through the whole process. But I do know of someone who ended up having a good night out, and they did have one, and they were apparently followed for a little while, but nonetheless, thankfully everything got dropped off, charges dropped because it was just more than that incident that happened that evening. So just, like everything else, when you get pulled over, just make sure you just follow procedures as you've been probably instructed by peers, your mom, dad. You guys have always heard the story. So nonetheless, Kurt Busch, who was forced into retirement after suffering a concussion during the 2022 NASCAR Cup season, was arrested on Monday night. Why this story just came out yesterday is beyond me, but like everything else, they probably kept it under wraps until someone was able to explore it. But the 2004 NASCAR Cup Series champion was initially pulled over for speeding. Per report from the Iredell Free News, he was traveling 63 miles an hour in a 45-mile-an-hour zone. I think there's been a bunch of people that have probably done so, but again, depending on where you are. The incident took place at about 11:32 p.m. Eastern time on Monday. However, Busch was later arrested and charged with DWI, careless driving, and reckless driving by the Iredell County Sheriff's Office. He was released after 3 hours, and his driver's license has been revoked for 30 days. He will have appear in court on September 19th. Now, according to the report here, it says Busch's blood alcohol level at the time of the arrest was 0.17%, while the legal limit in North Carolina is 0.08%. It used to be, when I was at Fort Bragg, it was at 0.10%. So apparently they dropped it more. And in Pennsylvania, it's even lower than that, where it is 0.05%. Busch hasn't raced in the NASCAR Cup Series since the summer of 2022. A crash during qualifying at the Pocono Raceway sidelined him with a concussion. Busch, now 48, was never able to go back to racing at the top level of the sport again. Busch has served as a team ambassador for the 23XI, or in 2311, race team in the years following the Pocono crash. His Cup career spanned 23 years, winning 34 races, 776 starts. He won races with the various teams throughout his time in the sport, including Team Penske, but his lone championship came with Roush, now RFK Racing. His final race came with the 20, now they put it backwards. Now it's 20IX. And that's what happens sometimes with news stories. Racing at Kansas Speedway in 2022, 3 months before the career-ending crash. So, again, who knows what happens? We know with a lot of athletes, some of them which have had concussions before or have been concussed, certain things end up happening. I'm not saying that's the case in this story here, but we'll find out. Depending, and we didn't know of him. There was always stories kind of escalating and saying that he would love to drink, but I don't think I ever came across a story where he was just called a blatant alcoholic. I've never heard of that. Now, I'm not as in inner circle, so I have no idea, but I would think, like most people, he probably likes to casually drink. This time, depending on if the stories will come out a little bit later on, we'll all come to find out exactly what ended up happening with him and the whole incident. Sticking with NASCAR at the moment, because there's a lot of people that are really, really upset of what happened this past week. For those who do know, and I've got to go back to the story, but the story that came out with the crashing incident last weekend, which was not a good look for NASCAR. But I want to get back to that before I get into the Robert Griffin story, because apparently he came out to speak. Let me find out here. One thing was that Dale Earnhardt Jr. Had spoken about, he praised the energy from the official who scolded Joey Logano for the pit road incident. Now, for those that didn't see it, a couple of days ago, we ran the video where it showed that Joey Logano decided, for whatever odd reason, and I don't get it now, Kurt Busch, ironically enough, used to be considered like one of the bad boys of racing. Hot-tempered. A lot of people knew it as he kind of came down the back end of his career, tend to calm down a little bit more. Everybody remembers, like the same way Dale Earnhardt, for many, many years, the man in black, super temperamental. And then he just calmed down after so many years. And then finally we started seeing towards the end of his career, which we'd hoped that we would see him walking away from the car. But unfortunately, his life was taken too early at a Daytona race where he allowed his son and Michael Waltrip and Steve Park, for that matter, at the time when he had owned DEI, to go ahead in front of him so he can try to finish at least 1-2 as a team owner. Unfortunately, on the last lap of the Daytona 500, he got into an accident going to turn 4 with Sterling Marlin, hit the wall. And for everybody who doesn't know, Dale Earnhardt, even though there's a 5-point harness in the car, never liked where the safety mechanism, which is by the hip, which is normally a little bit, so if you sit in your car, it's always just a tad bit behind you. And the reason is so that your body won't get propelled forward if you're wearing your seatbelt properly. He liked it shifted in front of his hips. And from what has been known for many, many years, that on the final turn of any race, he'd always loosen up his 5-point harness. So that causing the impact on his chest. There were pictures that were out there, but thankfully they were never released. I think there might have been one that was released out there, but quickly taken away. But the impact between the chest to the steering wheel is what eventually ended up taking his life. And a lot of us remember that as a sad day because he was one of the great racers in NASCAR history, along with Adam Petty, who ended up passing away later on that year as well. It was 3 different deaths, but because of that, they've had more safety measures. But the reason why I say that is to this, where Joey Logano decided after basically wrecking out Denny Hamlin, or getting wrecked as well by Austin Dillon. And Austin Dillon, of course, was taking away his playoff championship because they took away that race win because of, you can hear one of the people up in the grandstands, which is part of the crew chief team, saying wreck 'em towards the final end of the race there. So he ended up getting removed as far as the win, so that does not make him playoff contentionable. So that will probably end up following up more. But Joey Logano decided that he wanted to kind of retaliate, and the dumbest way you could do it is with a car. Now, whether you're in NASCAR or in your regular vehicle, because there was an incident even here locally in the Tampa region where a gentleman that had a tractor. Now, when I mean tractor, obviously a normal tractor that pulls a trailer on the highways. Well, he was thrown out of a gentleman's club, and it was about 4:19 in the morning or somewhere around that time, and decided that he was going to wait for the people apparently who, I guess, instigated, because the story hasn't been completely determined yet. But somehow or another, there was a table that he was sitting across from. There was something that happened, apparently some disagreement of some sort. He was asked to leave the club, which he did, but then decided to wait until these people were coming out, whomever it was inside the club, and they were all standing outside. Apparently, we've learned within the last day that he sent a text saying that he is going to go to jail because of vehicular manslaughter. And you would think, even if you send that text, that moment in your mind, you would have thought, well, you know what? Maybe let's not do this. How about I decide just to wait and see what happens? Or, I don't know, call me crazy. If you were that upset and you decided now that you're outside because you're no longer inside the club, speak to those people and find out, okay, what really happened? But he chose the latter of the two, started up his tractor, waited for them to come out, and then decided to make a beeline straight into the club. And I believe one person was killed on the scene. Two people were seriously injured, but they were going to overcome their injuries from what was stated. But again, how deep do you have to get? And you're talking about a tractor that pulls a trailer. And you guys know anything about diesel engines? I mean, those things, it doesn't take long to get up to quick speed. And not only that, but I mean, you're not going to outrun it. And there was no place for these people to go because the doors obviously were closed behind them. So it wasn't like they can race back inside into the club. So it's crazier things. But Dale Earnhardt Jr. loved what he saw from NASCAR official when went after Joey Logano for his pit road incident at Richmond. On the Dale Jr. Download, which is his podcast, the racing legend said, the sport needs more of what we saw from the inspector. Again, if you guys missed out, when Joey Logano was coming down, he chose to, instead of, there's a safety inspection line after every race. If you guys have never watched NASCAR, you're supposed to follow the cars that are in that inspection line. They have a quick inspection, and then they go back into their garages, and then they finally have their post-race inspection to make sure the car was legal. So Joey Logano, for some odd reason, decided he wanted to go down the left side of pit row where all the cars are lining up to get back to their haulers, and basically rev up his engine a little bit. And then there was a family there, and there was two kids. One was being held by the mom in her shoulders, and a dad who had a child in their shoulders as well. But the whole family was there, and he revs up the engine and hits the brakes real quick, along with the official that could almost end up getting hit, but thankfully the official jumped in the way. But then they move out of the way. He goes out a little bit further, and that's where this picks up because someone finally had scolded him. Now, I love the energy. I've shared that with the folks of NASCAR, and I was afraid that the individual would maybe get even more reprimanded for his energy. And now how he handled that situation, Earnhardt said, from what I was told, that didn't happen. I was encouraging that's a good energy that we need the drivers to certainly respect the officials, especially when they're thinking about who's in that booth every race weekend. We're very critical of the booth. I don't love that. I don't want to be critical of the booth, but there are moments when there are general fans and ourselves are hard on them. Logano did a burnout in front of Austin Dillon's crew and family on pit row after wrecking him during the final lap of the Cookout 400, along with the official yelling at him. NASCAR fined Logano $50,000 for the incident. Now, again, a lot of this stuff, it really doesn't make any sense, but here's some more that followed the incident there at Richmond. Some of this, we've got some work to do on our side. NASCAR Vice President of Competition Elton Sawyer said, per NASCAR.com, there was a lot of people on pit row, and there always is. If you've ever been to a race, especially if you're lucky enough to be on pit row, there's always a ton of activity going on there. Now, we have our officials out there. The drivers need to totally understand the emotion I get it, meaning what happened, the post race. I've been there a few years back, but you have to respect the fact that we do have a lot of people on pit road. Our officials will be there, security will be there. We'll do a better job on our side to make sure the families and young children and sponsors and of that nature are not on the hot side, meaning where Logano came down. If anything, and I've never seen any other incident like this before, but now it's probably going to happen as the guys are heading back towards the haulers. Like I said, that quick post-inspection race, post-inspection, they will now probably wait until all the cars are cleared and in before they allow the families and the NASCAR crews to come out in front of the haulers in the pit boxes. After the race, Logano made it clear that he did not like what Dillon had done to him. No, when you get that far ahead, 3-4 car lengths ahead in 3, I didn't back up the entry. I was like, and it jumped around. What ended up happening there? All right. Well, I don't know what happened there, but apparently it decided to jump around in the story there. But anyways, in relation to that, it was like he said he didn't like the entry. I was just like, the wrap around bottom here, I'm good. And he drives in so hard. Obviously, he didn't make the turn because he hit me, and the 11 was going to win the race. So, listen, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in NASCAR. Everybody knows it. You've heard it before. A lot of times the term rubbing is racing, and it is in NASCAR. That's one of those things where everybody's competitive. We've seen it many, many years with many historical drivers, Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Kevin Harvick, Dale Earnhardt, Richard Petty, and the list goes on, Cale Yarborough. But it's a different time now where you don't want to make sure, and you want to make sure, I should say, is that don't put people in harm's way. Those families, God forbid if Joey Logano didn't hit the brake, could you imagine those two innocent kids, along with all those people as well, but the two kids and the injuries they could have sustained because you were just feeling hot at the moment? Everybody has. We've all done silly stuff at one point or another because of the heat of the moment, but you also have that moment too to think like you can be so enraged, like, hey, but if I do that, what are going to be the consequences? Now it's easier to say it, obviously, when I'm talking to everyone here on a live show, but when it's happening in a moment, we've seen people do some dumb things. The move that Joey Logano made was definitely a dumb thing to do. Make no mistake about it. It really was. And hopefully he'll learn from it. He has to. If not, then NASCAR will continue doing what they need to do to make sure that everything that they do in their power is to make it safe for everyone, spectators, families, everyone alike. So I'm quite sure it's probably going to be just a little bit more of a fallout, what ends up happening. And about 2 hours ago, Denny Hamlin had revealed his initial reaction to being wrecked by Austin Dillon at Richmond. According to Denny, he said he had a whirlwind Sunday at Richmond Raceway, but his evening came to a shocking conclusion when he was wrecked for the win by Austin Dillon during the Cookout 400. Coming to the checkered flag, Dillon took out Joey Logano, exit turn 4, but then he decided to continue the carnage, hooking Hamlin into the wall for the win. On the latest episode of Action Detrimental Podcast, again, another one that's out there, Hamlin elaborated on his initial reaction to being wrecked and missing out on the season sweep of Richmond. Quote, "My initial reaction is that he must have ricocheted off the number 22 into me," Hamlin explained. "Like I had no idea. It was just like a deliberate, I'm going left, type deal. Or you're going to win? No, you're not. Like I didn't know it was like that until I watched it because he hasn't seen it." So there's more that goes on to the story, but you guys pretty much get the point. He's just like everybody else that night. They had no idea what was coming, other than you can hear later on in the recording where one of the members of Austin Dillon's group, you can hear him yelling over the radio, "Wreck him." Not a good look, especially now, the way things are happening. With that, speaking about good things that don't happen, Robert Griffin Jr. spoke out. And listen, we all know this is a different time and age. A lot of times people have to watch what they say and, stuff that you tweet out, you have to word it a certain way. I thankfully, for the most part, never get into the super politics because that's for everyone votes, everyone does their thing. And to me, to kind of bring it over to the sports mecca, I leave it alone. But also, too, with that being said, is that you should be able to make an opinion because that's all it is. It's an opinion. You should be able to make an opinion based upon how you feel towards either a particular venue, sometimes towards a particular person. There could be a lot of people that don't like a particular songwriter, a singer, a comedian, an actor, whatever. But you should be able to make your opinion, because you do it with your friends. Everybody knows this. When we all get together somewhere, and some people do it at cookouts, some do it at family events, you always spark up that conversation like, oh, I really didn't like this person because it just doesn't make any sense. You guys have heard me before saying about the Kardashians. I mean, listen, God bless them because they've been able to do what they do in California and have all these people believe that they're the best things since sliced bread, and they give them all their money. A person in California, which is kind of ridiculous to me, and again, it's just my opinion, we've seen it where they've given up their last dollar to the Kardashians, but no offense, they're not giving it back to you. You could walk right by them somewhere and just tell them, hey, I bought your makeup for $60 and I'm, hard on my luck. The probability of you getting that money back is going to be slim to none. But again, that's just a comparison of the things that we should be able to say. Because again, that's what life is all about, based upon our opinions. Now, if there's a fact, like for example, I can't say for a fact that they wouldn't give that person money back because of hard times, and they've probably done a lot of good things. Don't get me wrong. I'm not bringing them down to like they're beneath the earth. They're not. I just think it's funny that people will they will lay, on the old way, the way it used to be that you would put your coat out on a puddle so that your lady, if she had nice shoes on or whatever, just being a gentleman so she wouldn't have to step in the puddle and you let her walk over. It's just with the Kardashians, it's one of those things. They've been able to make money. Lord knows they've had a show for many, many years. They just got picked up for another season of wherever they are. And they've done well for themselves. So I'm not, I'm not bringing them down like they're the worst things on the earth, because they're not. There are a lot of people that are a lot worse. And I don't even think I've belittled them to the point where people would say something. But anyways, besides the point, Robert Griffin Jr. III speaks out after the ESPN firing. Will continue to seek and defend the truth. Now, this comes from an article that was just released today by Kirby Lee. After posting a now viral clip following his departure from ESPN on Thursday, Robert Griffin III posted a heartfelt statement. The network opted to part ways with a former Heisman Trophy winner in a budget-related move. The Athletic's Andrew Marchand reported. We've heard that many a times, and if you guys work somewhere in the corporate world, you see someone that's known as a bean counter, and do not take that for anything of what it is. It's just exactly what it was. But as Rick Marcus says, that I thought RG3 was replaced by Jason Kelce back in May, and Griffin was staying on to do other duties. Yep, he was. He was replaced by Jason Kelce, but I think this kind of went a whole different direction because he was supposed to stay on with ESPN. But then again, you know what? Amazon would end up picking him up. I'm pretty sure Amazon would have no problem picking up Robert Griffin III. But Griffin served as the NFL and college football analyst for ESPN, including game broadcasts alongside with Bob Weichen at the college level and time on the Monday Night Countdown panel. However, where Rick's point comes in here, ESPN pulled him from Countdown this year after hiring Jason Kelce, and the network cut ties on Thursday. Griffin expressed his gratitude for his 3 years at ESPN and reflected his time in the booth. He also vowed to continue to, quote, seek and defend the truth while telling athletes stories the right way, end quote. Now, here's what he had stated. Thankful for so many people in my time at ESPN that helped me grow because they are some of the best in the business. From the broadcast booth to the studio, and especially the people, many of you, never seen behind the camera. They are real MVPs and sacrificed so much time, and which he had put a picture out there, and that was according to his X profile, meaning Twitter, not his ex as in his ex, because he's married with his wife and child. But to his Twitter profile, and that's what I posted up there. Thankful for so many people in my time at ESPN that helped me grow because they are some of the best in the business, Griffin wrote on X. From the broadcast booth to the studio, and especially the people many of you never see behind the camera, they are the real MVPs and sacrifice so much time with their families just to ensure people like myself in front of the camera even have the opportunity to shine. There are so many awesome experiences and moments that my family and I will never forget from the last 3 years. What people sometimes fail to realize is none of this is possible without you guys, the fans. So thank you to everyone who supported my family through my playing days and broadcast career so far. We love you guys and will continue to seek and defend the truth while telling athlete stories the right way. Now, there's a little more that kind of goes along with the story as well. as Griffin was one of two ESPN personalities fired on Thursday, along with Sunday NFL Countdown host Sam Ponder, which that made absolutely no sense. You guys had heard Pete talk about it, that this is where politics should always kind of stay away from sports. But if you look at it even on a deeper side, if you say something, because we all know when it came from the Olympics, the boxing, right? I won't get too super into it, but that should not have happened. And if Sam Ponder wanted to say something about that, this is where the political aspect of things come into play. And it shouldn't be. But unfortunately, ESPN may not come out and say exactly because she decided to say that. But you heard what Pete talked about. If you go left, and we've seen a lot of folks there where they've gone left, and those who like to talk about the right, you're categorizing different things. We see it in everyday life, depending on what state you reside in. We've seen it. And it's a shame because that's not the way it should be, nonetheless. And I'll leave that at that. But Martin reported that both contracts were expiring. The network made the decision with the end of its fiscal year looming. Don't believe that one, but that's what they're going to run with. Griffin won a Heisman Trophy during his decorated career at Baylor from 2008 to 2011 and spent time with the Washington, Cleveland Browns, Baltimore Ravens during his NFL career, which was marred by injuries, and then he ventured into the media world, and ESPN wasn't the only suitor. The Athletic reported Fox Sports expressed interest and considered Griffin to replace Reggie Bush on Big Noon Kickoff last year. However, the network opted to hire Mark Ingram, and Griffin moved to the broadcast team with Wishon after the shakeup. He received consideration for the number 2 spot along Sean McDonough, which ultimately went to Greg McElroy, the Athletic reported. So Griffin also had a spot on the Monday Night Countdown alongside with Scott Van Pelt, Marcus Spears, and Ryan Clark. However, with Kelsey now on board, he was the odd man out. Listen, it doesn't really make any sense. But this is the world that we live in. When you can't really say what you want to say anymore, it's a shame. Because now it's costing people's jobs. And not only just Robert Griffin, a lot of people are, again, it's costing their jobs because all they want to do is speak the truth. You should be able to do exactly that, which is to speak the truth. It doesn't make any sense. But now when you voice your opinion, some people don't like it. And then you either get tarnished or you're called whatever, left-wingist, right-wingist, never hear about the middle, the rear, I don't know, up, down, none of that stuff. So if we can't, as broadcasters, as people in the media, be able to share our opinions without being judged forever and a day, it's our opinions. That's what makes life so great. Because for some of us who love to go down to the beach, I mentioned this before to someone when I resided in Philadelphia, I used to love going out. Matter of fact, it was my, can't call her barber. I guess she's a hairstylist. But when I was just mentioning yesterday, the one thing that I loved living in Philly is that you can go down to the Jersey Shore. If you go down to Wildwood was one of those places that it was very family oriented. It was fun, dry town, good time. You go to Atlantic City because Atlantic City was more of the people watching because every aspect and different person of life walked through the boardwalk. And if you hung around at nighttime to go out, some of the casinos would kind of turn into a dance club per se when you would walk through. But if you hung around long enough, it was great to see these people out there just carrying on, having fun, making the best times of their lives. That was the great thing about Atlantic City. And the best part was you could be sitting next to a complete stranger. Didn't know from a can of spray paint, as the term has been used many times up north, and sparked a great conversation by just simply watching a person walk by and you said something and the person would laugh and here you are right engaged in a conversation the way it used to be. Now you do the same thing and it's almost like you get looked sideways. Why? We should still be able to voice, our voices should be heard no matter what. It's your own freedom of speech. But when people continue to curb that, it's just insane to me. Nonetheless. But you also heard earlier on that Jim Harbaugh said he is not having Colin Kaepernick be a part of the Chargers coaching crew. and that he also will not be vying for a position, I guess, with the Chargers, but he also had mentioned, too, how much he still loves Colin Kaepernick. So I don't know what Colin Kaepernick's planning on doing, but apparently he put out something a little while ago on social media saying that he was not giving up on his NFL career. But mind you also, this is the same person, and you guys can seek that out there on social media unless they scrubbed that already, but this was the same person that put out a video and said that the NFL were slave workers. So I don't get it. It's either you look at the stuff you've done in your past and you change your past, or if you are a believer in whatever it is that you're believing and you want to keep going forward with it, then let's one of the two. But we've seen that before, and I don't know how that story ended up ever changing. But it's just the way some things unfortunately fall. Sean McVay also said that Jimmy Garoppolo won't play versus the Chargers, stresses importance of reps for Stetson Bennett. Now, and that's according to here with the Rams. We all know with Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, obviously Tom Brady didn't want him in New England, so he got traded out to San Francisco. San Francisco supposedly loved, hated him, whatever the case may be. Didn't really wanted him around. Ended up going to the Raiders. Raiders were like, yeah, listen, thanks for playing, but we really don't want you either. And now he's with the Los Angeles Rams. So as the Rams get ready for this week's preseason game against the Chargers, they won't have Jimmy Garoppolo. Sean McVay confirmed that he won't play in the matchup, which comes as he gets ready to serve a 2-game suspension for violating the NFL's performance-enhancing drug policy. That means that Stetson Bennett will get some looks under the center in the game behind Matthew Stafford. In fact, that's by design. McVay said that getting Bennett reps and a reason why Garoppolo isn't playing on Saturday. As whether this will be the case in a preseason finale against Houston, Texas, McVay said he hasn't made the decision yet. He won't, McVay said, via Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio, about whether Garoppolo was going to play. I think, this is according to Sean McVay, I think it's important to be able to get Stetson Bennett those reps. Jimmy got a bunch of workout yesterday, and I thought that was really good for him. He even got more than what we thought because Matthew Stafford participated in the first couple of periods. I thought it was great work for both of those guys. Jimmy has played a lot of football. I think it's important for Stetson to be able to get those reps. Whether or not we take the same approach for the third preseason game, we, as in the Rams, haven't determined that as of yet. So we've seen players. Obviously, there was somebody else too not so long ago that got pegged for some substance that he used. I think it was like a nasal spray in their nose. And listen, people are getting creative. I don't care who you are in the pharmaceutical world, whatever it is that you do, people have gotten really creative with some performance-enhancing drugs. Some. Now, that story has still yet to be pretty much unraveled because the suspension was of the nasal spray. Supposedly, allegedly, was that he used it. I don't know how it's going to help you, honestly. It makes, unless somehow or another, I don't know, it makes you like you spray it and all of a sudden you're focused. It's like smelling salt. Anybody knows that you've been knocked out, but put the smelling salt in front of you and you're up, you're alert for a quick second. So I don't know what the nasal spray has done. But nonetheless, that's another story that hopefully come next week, they'll have a little more clarification from it. Good morning, Joey B. Thank you for tuning in. Do appreciate it. Along with Rick Marks. Rick had to be hot on that tarmac. It is absolutely ridiculously hot in the Tampa area, but God bless, because I know he does a great job for Southwest Airlines. It'd be nice to have him here on board, but it's got to be hot out there on the tarmac. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the comment Rick made earlier, Joey B says, I need some smelling salts now. Moving my daughter to college today. Yeah, Joey. Buddy. Boy, oh boy. My 2 youngest haven't gotten to that point yet. One is very close if she decides she wants to go that route. But listen, God bless. I hope she's safe. I hope she makes some good decisions and some good choices, right? Because life is about choices. You guys hear me say it all the time. So hopefully I hope it works out well for her to be safe. More importantly, we hope, like everyone else who's out there in college, may you enjoy your college moments, because there's a lot of us who didn't get the opportunity of doing so, but I see a lot. We saw yesterday with the USF campus, the Bulls shop, where people were just coming in and out of the little local store there. And it's got to be fun, I would imagine. Other than obviously doing what you're supposed to, which is studying, getting good grades, making sure you get your degree from mom and dad, not going there just because it's party time. But it had to be fun. Living in a college dorm, meeting new people, different life experience, especially when you're coming out of high school. Because in high school, you're never bunked up with anybody, right? Other than if you have a sister or a brother or, a cousin or something else. But it's got to be probably one of the cooler experiences in life. Again, I didn't get the opportunity of doing so, but I guess I've lived vicariously through other people where they've gone on and have been able to go to college, do their thing, and move on. With the Eagles here, quickly, before we get into some of the USF women's matchup here, Joey B says, as I just mentioned it, your USF soccer game in the campus there, comments, thoughts, pretty nice, I assume. Yep, I will get into that momentarily, Joey B, because as you just end up sending it on the Facebook thread here, or excuse me, on the YouTube thread, I'll get into that momentarily. Don't forget, you guys can always call and or text into the show at 727-858-6650, 727-858-6650. You guys can always call in. You can always make your live opinions as well on the social medias, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Rumble, along with watching the live show always on SR1029thegame.com. And I see some folks, they're viewing it from there as well. And I do appreciate those who watch it on there, because if any time Facebook or YouTube, which are notorious for it, I mean, no one's going to lie, even though a lot of the information, obviously, that we get is available public domain, they still throw a monkey wrench in there and say, no, it's not. Yes, it is. It's available in public domain. If all this stuff is private, think about it, folks. How the hell we get our information? We hear stories, and it's on either TV, via radio. How's it told? Because someone got the story. Then we hear it, and we turn around and we translate the things that we've seen before. So my thing is that if it's available via public domain, if it's a video, if it's a comment, it's on public domain. I wish Facebook and YouTube would get a clue on that stuff, even though now YouTube finally has an inserted line where it says public domain. Thank you, YouTube, for at least going that route to help out people who do live shows. It helps us out without having to go through all these copyright things that aren't copyrighted. Anyways, getting to the Eagles real quick before I get into USF. Nick Sirianni confirms that former Steelers quarterback Kenny Pickett is Eagles backup behind Jalen Hurts. So apparently he's shown a lot of wherewithal, to put it in best terms, to become the backup quarterback. We know about the Steelers and all their new quarterbacks, but what's going on with Kenny Pickett? Pittsburgh's first-round pick from 2022, who started for the team for nearly 3 seasons. Well, he's now with the Eagles, and Thursday's game against the Patriots basically cemented Pickett's status as QB number 2 behind Jalen Hurts. However, there are questions as to whether Philadelphia's Tanner McKee should be Hurts number 2 instead of Pickett. Reporters asked Eagles coach Nick Sirianni about his depth chart following the team's 14-3 win over the Patriots. Now, you saw where they went in today. Sirianni said reporters Thursday night, Kenny is number 2 and Tanner is number 3, and I'm really happy they're both on the roster. Pickett put together some nice stats. He completed 11 of his 13 passes for 67 yards. However, the Patriots defense sacked him 4 times. Of course, there are a variety of reasons for the sacks: screw-ups in the line, a running back misses a block, and the quarterback holds on to the ball too long, etc. McKee then entered the game in the third quarter. The Eagles selected then former Stanford star in the 6th round of the 2023 NFL draft. Both of McKee's drives ended with unsuccessful 4th down attempt. McKee got another chance after Will Grier enjoyed 2 drives. Then it was back to McKee, who led the Eagles on the go-ahead drive. He completed the drive with a flourish thanks to 2-point conversions. McKee's numbers appeared more impressive than Pickett's. He was 15 of 19 for 140 yards and 0 sacks. I thought they both did some good things today, Sirianni said in his post-Eagles games presser. I think, Kenny was 11 of 13? Ball only hit the ground twice, and he had some pressure on him. Tanner played well. I think he was 15 out of 19 today, but made some good throws. I thought Will did some good things. I'm happy that they're all on the roster right now. I really am. That's a good room, and they're all helping Jalen, helping each other out, and I love that. So it's a really good room. So, looks like Pickett could be the number 2 guy, regardless of what was stated there about McKee. So, that's quite interesting. And Eagles, there was an article out not too long ago either about who's more in the hot seat, whether it's Salah from the New York Jets or it's going to be Sirianni. Again, in my opinion, I think they're both going to be equally on the hot seat. And I may be a little tough on Nick Sirianni, but he's yet to prove this year that last year was just a complete and utter disastrous fluke. Just a fluke. And so we hope that it gets better, that Nick Sirianni and the Eagles end up having a better performance this year. And listen, I know teams get off to a hot start. Eagles have been able to do it 2 years in a row, 9-0, 10-0. They've been able to do so. But let's not have that super hot start and then have the collapse that we've seen. I believe this season, it seems like the NFL, and I may say this, year after year, but I just like how this year the vibe's a little bit different. I think preseason, not as many people are worried about it as in recent past, because a lot of folks remember that we used to put so much emphasis behind preseason football, and in the end, it doesn't matter. The only thing that's been hurting a lot of guys or a lot of teams are the injuries. Now, again, injuries come dime a dozen. It sucks, but it's a part of being an athlete, whether you're on an NFL team, a soccer team, a hockey team, no matter what it is, it happens. There are injuries. It stinks, and we try to do everything to prevent it. I mean, I had torn bicep yesterday by the Bills, just off a drill. So things happen, but I just hope that Nick Sirianni and crew end up doing well. I don't know. I'm not convinced yet that the Eagles can beat Green Bay in Brazil. I know there's going to be a lot of Packer fans. I know there's definitely going to be a ton of Eagles fans, thanks to Philly Sports Trips and Vince Rizzuto making that trip out there with the Eagles fans out from Philly. But I'm not super confident yet. I'm not feeling it, at least, that Nick Sirianni can beat the Green Bay Packers with Jordan Love. Jordan Love was on fire towards the last part of the 2023 season as it came into 2024, obviously in January. But things happen. So I'm hoping the Eagles end up doing better. As far as the USF, we're going to have the USF women's soccer moment here. And I can't thank USF not only for the hospitality yesterday, being on the sidelines there from end zone to the other end zone, obviously from the USF side and the FSU side of the house. Great crowd on hand. I will say that much. A lot of FSU, Florida State Seminole fans, were out there again in the notorious Seminole colors. And if you were looking at the stadium from the field perspective, if you walked into the venue, to the right was the visiting team. The home team had the whole left side wrapped around, and even there's a grass berm that's out there that if there's enough people to fill up the Corbett Stadium, that's where they would have been. A lot of USF students were on hand. A lot of parents I could see as well. I don't know if they decided to hang around after moving day to see their young daughters play on the team. But it was a really good crowd on hand. Hot, as it usually is here in the Tampa region this time of year. But nonetheless, great performance yesterday. USF. I'll have a couple of the players here, and I apologize that I will try to get to learn their names a lot better. There's some of the names on here that it's the first time for me to be able to read some of these names. So if I butcher your name, I apologize in advance. I will get better learning your names because I would just, the same way. My name's been butchered before. It's super simple, but I can't tell you how many times I either got Martinez, I got Martinez, what else? I got Marinez. Do I take it super personal? No. I just say it's Martinez, and I kind of leave it at that. So if I end up screwing up your name, my apologies. I do not mean to do so intentionally. But early on, USF, we started watching them in practice before, obviously, the national anthem. And everyone who was in attendance, by the way, thank you so much for standing up during the national anthem. It was great to see. Whether you're talking during is one thing or another, but I heard pretty much radio silence while the national anthem was playing. And it was really cool to be able to, just don't call me Angle. That's it. That's it, Joey B. As one of our guys, Mickey, loves to, for some reason, and another friend of mine too, it's Angel, Angel. It's the simplest thing ever. But yeah, that's the one thing that probably drives you crazy the most. But national anthem was played well. Again, standing room only when it came to the stands. A lot of folks that were hanging around. The USF men's football team that were out there in support. We could also see later on, about 10 or 15 minutes into the game, you can hear, because the USF men's football team, their practice facility is right on the other side of the soccer field. So you can, looks like they were going through some night practice with some sound, and as they were preparing for their game. So I did hear the sounders of the game sounders of the practice while the game was going on, but it did not interrupt what was happening on the field. But earlier on, USF, the women's defense, stayed at FSU's end zone. Yes, it's a soccer field, but I'll still call it the end zone anyways because it's considered football. In England, overseas, of course, here in America, we call it soccer. But ended up staying in their end zone for, I would say, in the first half, at least about 29 minutes in the first half. Had made a couple attempts. I believe before, when the half came around, there was about 4 shot attempts, 2 on goal, and 1 went wide and the other one went high. This is, again, at the first half. And USF women's defensively, Sarita Thurton, number 14, you could see her scrambling all over the field. You could also see number 7, Noelle Sather, same way. And also number 12, Sadie Sider-Etchenberg, if I'm saying her name correctly. And then we saw her during warm-ups. I will be showing pictures a little bit later on social medias as well for the game. But Sadie, during warm-ups, had corner kicks that she was trying out, but these 3 ladies in particular, and not to take anything away too, because Anna Sutter was one of the ones I believe had attempted on one of the assists, along with, and I believe is Gentiana Fatah. All these women that were out there early on, defensively, USF and Coach Brown, whose wife, Mrs. Brown, Denise Brown, is now coaching the inaugural season of the Tampa Bay Sun Football Club. Defensively, I'm going to say that he instructed the ladies well. The goalie, number 31, and again, I apologize. It's a tough name to pronounce, but it's Lia Areza Galak from Spain. One mistake that she had made early on during the game was, for those who've ever played soccer before, you've seen many soccer games, as if the ball, as it's rolling, but it bounces at the same time it's rolling, it is hard as a goalie to try and catch up with the ball because, again, as it rolls and it skips up, it hops again. That's the opportunity, obviously, for the offense to turn around and score, and that's what ended up happening earlier on. Now, whether to say that she could not shake it off, it seemed like it because, again, one of the assistant coaches came down, instructed her, hey, the next time you see something like that, just let it go. Don't worry about it. Focus upon when it's rolling or just stay more in the box. So if there was anything critical about the game last night, minus giving up 4 other goals from that one, but that was probably the only biggest and worst, and not even want to call it harsh criticism because it wasn't. It's just one of those things as an athlete, and I'm pretty sure it was tough on her because it was probably like one of those mental things that she probably thought about after the fact, but nonetheless, played a really good game. Just FSU brought their game. 2-0, it was 2-0 going into the first half. A couple things also happened as well in the first half. A couple of great block shots early on defensively from USF from the women's side. And then number 10, again, Gentanaya Fetai, if I'm saying the name correctly, again, I apologize. Number 10, she had a cut on her right arm as she went in for a block. I believe one of the spikes had caught her right on the backside of her arm. And as she went down, it looked like it had just cut her enough to make it seem like she was bleeding profusely. So they stopped the game temporarily, had to go to the side. We did have a picture from that. I'll, again, share it out later on social media. But I'll put it out there so you guys can end up seeing it. She had a cut, stop and play, went right back out on the field, and played very well defensively. So that was one of the major moves. Another defensive stop came with 33-28 in the game, and that was by Sarah Brunner, who made an absolutely insane defensive stop. More of the same came in the first half, and then the second half, I don't know what happened, but in the first half, before we went into halftime, the first goal at 2019 was number 17's FSU, Mimi Van Zanten, was the very first one. And then not too far after that one was Georgia Brown, number 15, who had a big stop that could have scored again for FSU, but then they couldn't stop Jordan Dudley, number 11 from FSU, with 8 minutes to go before the half, when she scored the second goal of the game. The second half was a tale of two different tales. That was completely different. Joey B mentions that Florida State number 1 in the country. Yes, great experience for the USF women's team. Can only get stronger after that match. And I'm going to take that, Joey, because Coach Brown said the same thing as well. There was an article that was written up there on the USF women's soccer page on their website. You guys can look it up there, and I'll share it out as well on social media. But he had mentioned that he had the opportunity of either facing them on a home at home, but he figured this would be the best challenge for the women and for himself, because let's not forget, 17 years he was with as an assistant to his wife on the team, now taking over his head coach duties. But he had mentioned in the article that this would be the best game for them to set up for the remainder of the season. There's plenty of games to go. And what I saw on the field yesterday was very impressive. And I believe that these women will be, at the end of the season, somewhere in the tournament. You can just see the way they played. Again, I'll mention the second half here because it was kind of a little bit of a tale of two different tales when it came to the second half. But Joey B, yeah, they played the defending champs. Again, in the first half, looked very strong at best. We thought if it would have gone as a shutout the way it did last night, or a blank sheet, the way it would have happened would have been 2-0. There were times where USF, I believe it was 2 out of 4 attempts in the first half, close goals, but unfortunately one went wide and then one ended up hitting the bar, which that pretty much took the wind out of the sail, but that's where it ended up going into the half from there. Then Joey B follows up with, Angel, got to call it a match, not a game. Yes, I know. Come on. And the field is not called the field. Got to call it the pitch. Joey, listen, I know. I know. And unfortunately, I am going to call it that because for some folks who don't, if they never watch soccer or anything else, it's kind of tough. So I just trying to break it down to make it as easy as possible. But yes, as you had mentioned it, I know. It's one on me, but I just want to let everybody know. But on the second half, this is where it became a tale of two different tales, where it just seemed like FSU came out of the tent and just came out literally firing on all cylinders. Now, with that being said, number 17, and I've definitely got to look her up as well here. Young lady, let me go back to their roster because I want to make sure that it's the correct person here. There was a little bit of chirping on the field, and the same one that scored, which was Mimi Van Zetten. Listen, not going to take anything athletically, can't take it away from her because she was everywhere. Obviously scoring a goal herself, but she was just everywhere, except for 2 times she decided to kind of chirp up a little bit more and almost getting into a midfield collision, not because they were running, only because the mouth started running a little bit more. Now, of course, from the side, you can't hear exactly what's going on, but you could tell by the body actions because USF got really irritated. One of the players that were on the team she ended up getting a yellow card as well, but and again, didn't catch the number because it wasn't stated and it was not mentioned post-game, but you could see the dispute going on between both of them. What I did like was the side judge had made it very clear when she came to the side and told her to calm it down. That was the first time. Then the second time, there was another time when the ball went out of bounds. It went off of FSU's player, but there's 17 right there again. Mimi, she was there and started mouthing off again. And at this time, the side judge said, that's enough. Stop it. Which she truthfully at that point could have gotten a yellow card for the second time there at that point. But she ended up getting that yellow card a little bit later on. Also, number 30 ended up getting a yellow card not too long after Mimi did. Ashlyn Puerta ended up getting a yellow card as well. And I believe it was because that one came from a collision. But I don't know, again, what ensued because it's not like the ladies have mics on, so you can only go by what you see in there on the sideline. But she ended up getting a yellow card as well. Nobody received any red cards. No one was ejected from the game. So all players from both athletic teams end up remaining for the remainder of the game. But on the second half, as I said, there was a penalty shot that hit off the top of the post, and it came off of Gentinia. She was the one that ended up hitting the penalty shot, but it came right off the top bar, right off the post. And that was about as close as USF had remained for the second half of the game, as Riley and Jimenez for USF ended up adding additional scores, and then eventually ended up being 5-0, where FSU decided to take the match. And afterwards, of course, they stretched out. Fan-wise, I will say, both teams were friendly towards one another. FSU, obviously, when the game went on, you could hear both sides, grunting and the whole 9 yards, but nothing, thankfully, everything was nice. Everybody acted accordingly. But the USF women, I will not take anything away. Like I said, some of the numbers that I mentioned earlier on, a lot of these women, and the pictures I will share a little bit later on social media, played a really, really great game. And I won't, even though she gave up 5 goals, but again, for Liera Iras Galak, if I'm saying the name correctly, from Spain, she played a good game, tough matchup. Again, this is the defending national champions. If you want to put yourself to the test, they actually did that yesterday. So my hats off to the ladies. The next game they have is coming up this Sunday, August 18th. And as I look back up here on the roster or the schedule, because again, the final shot, by the way, was from Taylor Suarez at 67-12. And she was assisted by Ronnie Wall. And that was the final shot that was made for the game, 5-0. FSU had 5 goals, 23 shots, 11 shots on goal, 3 saves, 7 corners, 2 offsides, and 6 fouls. And for USF, no goals, 9 shots. Like I said, and 5 of those shots end up coming in the second half. So it wasn't like they slowed up whatsoever. It's just FSU was just really kind of taking it to them in the second half. 3 shots on goal, 6 saves, 3 corners, 2 offsides, and 7 fouls. Again, it was one hell of a game come yesterday. 11 players in USF women's soccer, according to Joey B. International players, recruits. Wow, yeah. Yep, they are. And the nice thing about it, too, is Joey B, is because now with the Tampa Bay Sun Football Club being here in Tampa, a lot of them are going back and forth. Of course, now the roster's set for both teams, but as the teams were building up, a lot of them, and where they come from, their background, just like the goalie comes from Spain who decided to come play for USF and has a good resume behind her as well. Joey B says, lots of Canadian players. That's a story right there for Coach to talk about on your show. Yes. And later on, I'd hope as I get together with SID from USF, we will have some of the athletes, because this will be throughout the entire season. We'll have Coach Brown on at one point. I hope to get him next week, as the 2 games will be played here over the weekend, so we can discuss both games that are being played over the weekend. Also get his thoughts on taking over from his wife. Even though they were a tandem duo for 25 years, they've been working with each other, 17 years over at USF. She has an impressive resume as well, as she leads on now her Tampa Bay Sun Football Club coming up here on Sunday for their first match. They won their exhibitioner out there in Tampa, so we're going to see how this team plays out. Of course, the United Super League Soccer League, for the Super League for the women, has 11 teams involved in it. This is going to be something exciting. The more we add soccer here stateside, I think the more people are going to appreciate it. Being in Philly, for example, I had the opportunity of watching the Philadelphia Union before moving down here to the Tampa region. So this is going to be really neat to see what the Tampa Bay Sun Football Club is going to end up doing. But again, hats off to USF women. And coming up this Sunday, August 18th, their next match will end up being against Jacksonville. That game is going to be at Jacksonville University. That'll be back again at Corbett Stadium, 6 p.m. start. You guys can still get your tickets. You can go to USF or go usfbulls.com, pick up your tickets there, or you can walk right up to the box office. Obviously, if you're a student, you get a discount. Sometimes you can get in for free. Just saying, maybe if you're a student. I'm not throwing that out there really, but nonetheless, it's about $20 for the berm and the stadium seating. I'm not too sure exactly what the prices were, but not too bad. And if you guys are trying to attend the Tampa Bay Sun Football Club game, that for students, they're having what's called like a ticket rate. I believe you can get it for $18. And that stadium there, which normally belongs to the high school that's right there on the river, was upgraded so that the facilities that are going to be made for the Tampa Bay Sun Football Club permanently, they decided to do a nice upgrade to the local high school team that's going to be there, sharing the facilities. And then when they leave, they're leaving all that behind so that the football clubs there at the high school can have a better football field and a better experience for the fans altogether. So a lot of exciting soccer coming up. Also, the men play tomorrow night. And I'll see if I can pull up the men's schedule, as the next one would be Saturday at 7 o'clock, Georgia Southern in an exhibition. That's their third exhibition before kicking off their season, which will be Thursday, August 22nd. That'll be at Corbett Stadium. The season kickoff, which they're doing Vovilas giveaway. If you guys know what they are, probably one of the most annoying sounds that you can hear, but it's in soccer. So it's notorious in soccer. But if you guys haven't heard, it's like basically a fur, and you'll hear people playing it. Huge soccer matches, you'll hear all the time. So that's going to be a giveaway, and that will be at home. So that will be at Corbett Stadium. That'll be Thursday, August 22nd at 7 p.m. We will be covering men's soccer as well. So not only would you get women's soccer, but we also be covering men's soccer, and we'll be out there on location for that kickoff versus Seattle University coming here to the Tampa region. And then the game after that will be, the next game will be at home on Sunday, 7 p.m. Versus Mercer. And that also will be at Corbett Stadium. So the first three games for the men will be the 22nd, 25th, 29th. That'll be at Eckerd College before they hit the road for the first time, which will be September 2nd at USC Wilmington. And if I can go back to the women here momentarily, do the same for the ladies. August 18th again against Jacksonville University. That's coming up this Sunday at 6 p.m. Game 2, followed by Wednesday, August 21st at 7 p.m. versus Southern University. Green Wednesday, raise the standard and wear your green bracelet giveaway. Yesterday, they gave away green shirts for those in attendance, and they were pretty nice too, the colors that they had for USF. And then the third game would end up being August 25th. That would be against FGCU, locally here, another Florida great college. That is Camper Day, Bark with the Bulls poster giveaway. So that's when you can bring your dog to the park, to the stadium, so they can enjoy the game as much as you do. And then their first road game will be at Kansas, August 29th. That's a Thursday night at 8 p.m. So we're going to be covering a lot of soccer this year. And yes, Joey, I will make sure as it progresses that I will get better as far as calling it a match and not a game. I understand it the same way that it's a pitch, not a field. So, but again, for those who are learning soccer and wanting to know just the basic fundamentals, I'm just trying to break it down as much as possible, and then we'll pick it up. So we'll be able to talk to some of the players on the staff, some of the assistants as well, and get their thoughts about both the men and women and what the expectations are for this year. Hopefully, like I said, next week at one point or another, we'll have Coach Brown. We understand he's going to be busy, rightfully so, with the ladies. And as same way, obviously, because they are students, to be able to make sure they have the availability, I will coincide with the SID to make sure that we can get everything set up. So we will be covering a lot of USF soccer this season right here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. So stay tuned. It'll be a lot of good times here with the USF Bulls. And by the way, Rocky yesterday was in the stand. He tried his best to get people to do the wave. I think he got about halfway through and tried to extend it over to Seminole Country, but the Seminoles weren't having it. I think one or two people ended up having it, but nonetheless, beautiful facility. If you guys have not been out there, I would implore you to come out to Tampa. USF, I can't wait for that new football stadium to be built on campus, but nonetheless, it is a beautiful campus out there. USF, Go Bulls. All your men and women coverage will be right here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. And for the games that we can't go out there because of a conflict as far as scheduling with everything that I do here on the network, I'll make sure that I still cover the game for you guys and bring in the action the following day. And if it's on the weekend, then we'll just wait until Monday and do some double coverage or something else. So all the action for your USF Bulls for men and women will be right here on the Coastal Sports Network and Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. All right. So with that being said, it will be a short show today as I am scheduled for something else here within the next hour, and I want to make sure I get there on time. So I thank you guys for a great week here, for always tuning in. Gas Pump Guy and Jerry from Rhode Island, Joey B, and others who tune in, Rick Marcus, all of you guys who make the comments on the social medias. Of course, you can always text or in the call in the show. You guys know it at 727-858-6650. thank you all for tuning in. We do appreciate it. And don't forget to please visit SR1029thegame.com. SR1029thegame.com. Download the digital sports app. I mentioned earlier on in the beginning part of the show, I met a great gentleman from Canada. Came all the way down to come see this team play, and the players obviously that come from Canada as well. We had a great conversation as he was heading back up to our friends in the north come Sunday, but he had mentioned he would possibly be there on Saturday night to watch the men play. Great gentleman. I did not get his name, but he was so fun to talk to. And I saw him. Thank you guys from guys. His great show, Angel. I appreciate it. But he was a really nice guy to speak to. And throughout the season, what I'm going to try and do as well is get some of the commentary from the fans who are in attendance, just kind of add a little more content and figure out how the people are feeling about the men and women's soccer team there at USF. So you guys have yourselves an absolutely outstanding and phenomenal weekend. Be safe, make good choices, and we will all be back here on Monday on the Coastal Sports Network, as it's going to be a hot one no matter where you are here in America. And thankfully, the hurricane decided to make a right. I just hope that nothing happens out there in Bermuda. They may take a direct hit. So please, folks, when you're saying your prayers over the weekend, make sure that you say a prayer for our folks out there in Bermuda Islands, because we want to make sure that they're safe, more importantly, because the last thing that we want is for anyone to be injured or, perishing because of a hurricane and things that happen. I mean, it is hurricane season, unfortunately, here in the States, as we know, and out in the Atlantic coast. So the last thing that we want is for anyone to be injured. So please, a prayer for all those out there in Bermuda, and hopefully that thing will turn in a direction where if the dry air comes in, maybe it'll just slow it down even more and help out the folks, and maybe it'll just become a rainmaker out there in Bermuda. But nonetheless, thank you all. I hope you all enjoy your weekend. Thanks again for downloading the app. More importantly, for visiting the website, sr1029thegame.com. We'll have also some stuff up there from USF, maybe over the weekend, if not by next week for sure. And then whatever interviews that we may have with the athletes, obviously with the coaching staff, if we can't do it live here on Martinez Company, I'll make sure. Oh, and there will be something released as well. Speaking of, because I want to make sure, let me not end the show just that quickly. I have to remember to do my due diligence here, because there is a video that I did want to play. Let me go back over to my shared screen, because there was something I wanted to play, and I'm glad I just remembered, because this young lady had the opportunity to come on with me, and on with me, not only with me, with Dylan, but let me take away this here. If I can quickly find the video, I will take this other one out. Let's take that away. I'll slide that down here for a minute. The reason why I thought about it, because Menards ARCA Racing Series, Becca Monopoly, and I'm going to bring this up here. I didn't get the chance to edit it, so you guys are literally going to get this in the most raw form possible. Becca was on with myself and Dylan. We had a great time speaking with her. Let me add this up here to the scene. So because I did not get the opportunity, I obviously have been busy trying to get things coordinated with USF to make sure that I was out there on time. We spoke to Becca on Wednesday. Now, for those who don't know, she is with the ARCA Menard Series. Has a very good resume, decides to start racing in her career, late in her career. And as I kind of fast forward here for a second, I'm going to kind of let it play off there for a minute. You're going to hear Dylan also mention something about a podcast, and God bless Dylan, because he tries his best, but you're going to hear him mention a podcast, but because we're recording it prior to make sure that we can get this out here. Becca Monopoly, huge race car driver, born in 1989, started out her racing career later than most people end up doing, but has a very impressive resume. You guys are going to hear what she has to say. She is from City Garage Motorsports out here locally in Lakeland, Florida. Yes, Dylan, he's on with me, Gaspon guy, every once in a while with me. And we've covered things together, but you're going to hear the conversation here with myself and Dylan and Becca. she is, for the first time, dipping her feet as a race car driver in NASCAR, but starting off with the Menards ARCA series. If you guys don't know what it is, this is a series that is before you have the Dirt series, and then you have the ARCA Menards series. There's also a former actor as well. He's, after his injury, he's actually going to be joining the NASCAR series as well. But Becca talks about how she got involved into racing, what made her pursue now being with NASCAR. And then, as I said, you're going to hear Dylan mention a podcast. God bless the kid. Because we recorded previously, and because Dylan has his own podcast that he does, a Racing Digest podcast, you guys will understand. But here's the conversation with myself, Dylan, and with Becca. It's rare that we do it unless I'm talking with Dylan, and you guys get tired of me talking to Dylan and Racing Talk because he'll go on for days. But a special guest with us here locally from Lakeland. And she's not just in Lakeland. She is all over the state of Florida. And the lady that I am talking about is Becca Monopoly. Joining us today, the driver of the 47 Toyota. More importantly, the driver of the 85 Ford for the City Garage Motorsports out in Lakeland, here locally in the state of Florida. It is Becca joining us today. Becca, thank you for taking some time away from the race car to actually join us here on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
You're welcome. The big thing and the big takeaway, which this is a lot of times I don't like to show the whole age thing, right? And I'm not talking about as far as your age. This guy right here, noticing that you were born the year after I already graduated from high school back in 1989. So this is where I feel like, one of them dinosaur type deals because I feel old. But coming into racing, it's got to be one of those things where your nerves, and I used to jump out of airplanes, so I know when it comes to as far as tightening up the nerves, and at the same time too, still having that little nervousness inside of you. But as you're coming around in life, and there's certain questions that I'll ask, and some other ones that I'll save for Mr. Spalding, but coming around and thinking about you growing up, most of the times, all of us as kids, right? Sometimes we'll think firefighters, doctors, lawyers. And then there's you in the racing aspect. What point in your life did you say, I want to get behind the wheel of a car?
So I was a late starter for racing compared to most of the other people I compete against in Florida. So most people start when they're kids in go-karts around 5-6 years old. I didn't start racing until I was 21. So I was well behind the curve, but I like to say that I made up for it. In the past 14 years, I have 20 championships and 95 wins. So I've made up for it. There's many of them that started as kids that don't have it. But growing up, I don't remember that I wanted to be a race car driver. I remember wanting to be a vet until I realized that not all the animals live. And then I don't remember what else. But growing up, I had an off-road backyard go-kart. So I would make my own racetracks in the backyard and drive around, have the dogs chase me, go up and down the street. So that was my racing. And everybody has iRacing now, which I just got in the past week, but I grew up on Mario Kart 64. That was my racing. So it was different for me. It wasn't like a lifelong dream, but once I started going to the races, and my dad has worked on a lot of the people's race cars around here, I started asking, and being an only child, the answer was no. Like, we don't want anything to happen to you. You're not going to do this. And then one day, finally, when I was 21, Dad rented a legend car for us. And we went out to Auburndale and did some testing. And before we went, he's like, okay, if this doesn't go well, if you suck, we're not going to get one. And I wasn't great, but I did better each time out. So it was enough to be like, okay, let's go try this. And then it just went from there. And just been going since.
Now, see, you brought up their championships, which that's going to be my next line, but you did it for me here. But you got to think about it. You said you're a late bloomer, but yet not many women in the sport have as many victories, yet alone championships as you have. What do you think would be a driving force for, let's just say if there's a young lady who's watching this today or someone that you've come across, I'm pretty sure plenty of times on the track, to not only say okay, you can start something late in life, but it doesn't mean you can't catch up to it the way you have. So what could you say to one of the young ladies today that if they have the drive and determination, it may not be behind the wheel of a car just like the way you've had professionally, but something they want to do in life, what can you take away from your life experience that you could tell the younger version of you to continue to chase your dreams?
You just have to stick with it. I mean, there's going to be some hard times, and I've gone through my share of hard times when it started going, and you get all the social media is a big part of it, and it's not always positive, but you just have to keep going every week. And I have in one of my trucks, I have one night a fortune cookie I got right before a race when things were bad, and I put the fortune in there because it says, how does it go? It says, the best form of revenge is massive success.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it like things got better then after that. So it's just, you have to keep going. I mean, life's going to happen. It depends on what age you start. You end up going to college, your interests change. But if you really want to do it, you just got to keep going at it.
Now, the biggest thing that you just brought up there was social media, because today it's not like when I was growing up. I can't say much for Dylan because Dylan's right around the age where you are. So in our days, back was the newspaper, right? So if you wrecked, something happened, the only way we knew of what you were going to say, unless we were listening to it live on the radio, was most of the time the next day on the local paper. Now with social media, it's completely different, because with the incident you had up in Indy, the people when it comes to social media, everybody knows, right? If anything that you do, whether you're in media, whether you're a NASCAR driver, in the Menard series, no matter where you are, people are quick to comment because they're not behind the wheel. So I was noticing from the accident you had, where now they've repaired the car fully back for you and getting ready for the October race. But someone posted up there on Facebook that, thankfully they didn't say anything super derogatory, but they pretty much was like, somebody just doesn't belong behind the wheel of the car. Now, to me, it's silly because they haven't gone through what you've gone through. So it's easy for us, right, as armchair quarterback and everybody else to make the comments, but we're not in your shoes, being behind the wheel of the car. So how much do you take that accountability? And then the rest of it, how much do you also brush off too? Because obviously people are not you.
I actually seen that comment too. And it just, you roll your eyes, you kind of like whatever. And you're like, Mom, did you see that? Like, and you vent a little about it, but like you said, they're keyboard warriors. They're not behind the wheel. And if anybody wants to say anything to me, I'd be like, oh, well, which car were you in? And well, I wasn't racing. Okay, well, then come see me after you do. I mean, yes, there are some people that shouldn't be behind wheels. And I see it more on the local level than the NASCAR level. But stuff happens. I mean, how many wrecks do you pass on I-4 every day? I mean, accidents happen. I tried to save it. Until you've experienced it, you don't know how hard it is. But I went, 121 laps without anything?
Yep.
I think I did pretty good. So.
Yeah, and especially in a race car too. I mean, they're not easy to handle, even in an ARCA car. I mean, the car can get loose on you like it kind of did there, or we have tire wear. I mean, there's so many things that can go into what happens to a wreck. I feel like people don't take that into account.
And they don't know how heavy these cars feel.
Yeah.
Like, it feels so much heavier than even your street car. It feels heavier than my Pro Trucks. Once it starts to come around on you, it's like trying to stop a semi-truck. It's not that easy. It looks easy, but until you're the one holding the wheel, you're like, oh, nope, that wall's coming. I'm done.
Yeah, it's tough. Everybody's like you said. I mean, they're keyboard warriors for the most part, and there's, because of social media, the presence today, which a lot of it is good, because if you have a business, especially like you guys with City Garage, you guys can promote yourselves out there. Where thankfully so far still we're not paying for it. And let's hope it stays that way, because it's the cheapest way for you to get yourself out there. The bad part is that you are going to have people that are going to make comments, and I think the best way would end up being, because if Dylan and I were at some restaurant somewhere and you walk in, we're looking at you as another regular person. Like, oh, I wonder what she does. Now, if for some reason we were to find out you were, any kind of race car driver, NASCAR driver, truck series driver, whatever the case may be, and you were to say like, no, that's what I do for a living, you almost do a double take because, again, most of the times when we see different people from different walks of life, you wonder whether either they tell the truth or they don't. Again, when it comes to social media, a lot of people go out there and they say they're one thing, but then when you meet them, it's someone completely different. So for you, have you ever been challenged by someone because you are now an auto racing driver? Have you ever been challenged by someone when you tell them like, no, this is what I do for a living, and then do they ever, or have they ever tried to call you out on a track or something else to kind of prove on who you are?
No, I've never had that. They're always amazed, like, wow, really? What do you drive? Or like NASCAR? And up until this year, I was like, no, not NASCAR, just stuff around here. Now I can be like, yeah, NASCAR now. Cool. But no, they're always just really surprised. They think it's so cool. And I'll try and tell them like follow us. But it's sometimes I've been out a couple times in public and they'll be like, "Oh, you racing this weekend?" Or I'll have no idea who these people are, and they'll start talking to me, and I'm like, "Mom, they recognized me." Like it's pretty cool. So like
That's
just the
awesome.
local stuff, even before NASCAR. But it's neat to be recognized outside of where they know you. Like I'm not in my fire suit, I'm not in uniform, so people look different when you see them out of place. Like when you see a teacher out somewhere else that or someone you work with, they're wearing something different. So it's not easy to spot someone, but when they do, I'm like, this is cool. Like I just feel loved.
And what I think is awesome with you, Becca, too, is and I, what Jason had talked about last week, and even when I talked to Stuart, like you have a day job, like this is your love, like this is your passion, this is what you love to do, and I think that's a testament to like your work ethic and your passion of not only still being able to do your work, obviously your day job, but also then getting to go out on track on the weekends and getting to run your races and continuing to grow. Like that is such a testament to just your work ethic and the person you are.
Yeah, and my work's so supportive of it. Everybody thinks it's really neat there. I work at an auction, so all the dealers, once they would see it, they're like, "Oh, really?" And I'm thinking, "Yeah, you want to sponsor? I mean, how much do you like it?" And then before I went for the race, the other marketing ladies, they posted on all the locations pages the picture for ARCA and for support, and more dealers were like, "Oh, I didn't even know." And like you said, you look at people and you don't expect something else like that, and so it was pretty cool the response I got from it and the support from everybody.
I have one more question for you. I don't want to ask too many questions because I know I'll be talking to you on Friday, but what has been the biggest thing you have enjoyed about racing locally here in the state of Florida, especially in the Central Florida area? We kind of talked a little bit about earlier before you jumped on the show. You race at Citrus, you're going to Showtime, New Smyrna. I mean, there's just so many tracks in this area that are you're seeing just so much growth in racing and in this part of the state. So what really is kind of attracts you to this area and just racing in the central part of Florida? It's exciting racing we have here in this part of the state.
Exciting's one way to put it. Yes, it's gotten sadly to say it's not as enjoyable as
Okay.
it has been in years past. Different people have come into the picture, come and gone. The quality of racing has changed. This year has been a bad one for us. We've been in a lot of wrecks. Not our fault, honestly. But ending our nights early, that part's bad. But what I like, of course, everybody likes to win. Everybody likes to do good. But I like when we're running good, even if we're not winning, but it's a good race. There's someone close by. We're battling. It's clean. I like the rush of it. It's fun. I like when we get to do autograph sessions. Those nights are fun. All the fans come out, all the kids. One of the best nights to do it is Halloween, and all the kids come dressed up in their costumes. That's my favorite night of the year for the autographs. But there's just a lot of good things about it. I mean, it's tough here in Florida with our weather. We get
Mhm.
almost as many rainouts as race nights sometimes, it feels like. But it's fun when the competition is good and clean and the field's not too spread out. And that's when it's fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to see, and here's something I had thought about too, just kind of as a neat thing, maybe to try to drive kind of more fans to the Central Florida area in terms of racing. I would love to see a race at the Freedom Factory where Cletus McFarland stuff is. For an ARCA
We
race, I think that would be
oh,
awesome. with the collaboration they could do with Cletus McFarland and some of the stuff that they do there. I know they obviously do the Les Mullets race, but I think that would be so much fun to have an ARCA race there. Or
That
even
would
just
be good.
Yeah.
I think maybe if he could smooth the track out, because we were there earlier this year with the truck racing.
Okay.
And we haven't been there since it was DeSoto, and it was very rough. Like, we even had to stop at a point for them to patch a hole in the track. Like, so I don't know how well the cars would do on that bouncy, but I think that would be really cool to bring them down there. There's plenty of room down there.
Yeah.
It's more banking than IRP. I don't know if it's how big is that track? Do you know if it's big enough to have a full field?
I don't know. It might be like I mean, I know they do the Les Mullets race. They probably have like 10 to 15 cars. It might be big enough to have a full field. I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
Never really raced ARCA there or NASCAR there before. I mean, outside of, like, as you mentioned, some of the short track, like local series have came there. So I'm not too sure.
Yeah, they've had.
Thing.
Yeah, they used to have the ARCA at New Smyrna too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if they brought that back too, but yeah, that would be cool down Freedom Factory. I mean, everybody loves to go down there.
I would love to see you driving a Crown Vic. I think that would be amazing.
I'll drive anything.
I love that.
Now, I was thinking you had just mentioned as far as getting a sponsor, right? So I think if you can go in, obviously as yourself, but AKA Jeff Gordon, if you remember the one that he did, I think it was like just before the Super Bowl, where he got in the car and acted like he's never been in a car before, and the person jumps in the back seat and he's like, "Oh, where are you going?" So he acted like he was basically a taxi driver. And then he took him in a closed course. So I think you should go to one of the local dealerships, go in again, just like Beckett said, "Hey, listen, I'm just trying out, like I want to feel out this car here. How about we take it for a spin?" And if you can knock their socks off inside a car, freak them out, and you just tell them they go, "So do I have a sponsor?"
I am not brave enough to do that, but I can picture it through, but that would be good.
That'd be
not going to happen, though. I don't have the Jeff Gordon money to fix it if something happens.
Yeah, that would be kind of tough. Why just tell them there's nothing to see here and just put some duct tape on and tell them it'll be just fine. Hey, creative way to kind of get the stuff done here. But
do you remember the This Is Sports Center commercial, Becca, where Jimmy Johnson gets out of the car and he's pickaxing oh my gosh, you got to watch this.
Okay.
Yeah, he's because there's a what is it, a speed bump, and he can't get the car over the speed bump, so he had to take a pickaxe and started fucking it out. That would be a great commercial.
Nice.
That would be good.
Tell Jason that we'll be redoing that for our social.
This is City Garage Motorsports too. Yes. It's like This Is Sports Center. Yeah. Oh man, that would be funny.
Now, Becca, one last question, because again, those who are joining us here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, the game, we have Becca Monopoly with us here, and it's part of a mini series because we're also going to be visiting the City Garage as well to get to know more, to see the car. Obviously, you see Becca there as well, along with the crew, minus Dylan. We'll leave Dylan at home. He doesn't need to be there, but of course, I kid about that one. But no, listen, I've never, for any athlete, I've never asked, and I'm just wondering for you as well as an athlete, is there a fear that you may have? And I'm not talking about even inside as far as a car, just like an everyday fear that you have that could potentially affect, like your mood, or something that that's upcoming that you're ready to go 100% in, but that small little fear kind of makes you think twice, like, do I really want to do this?
Doesn't stop me, but my fear with this is disappointing anybody. I don't want to disappoint the team. They believed in me. They asked for me. They wanted me. I don't want to disappoint them. I want to bring them results, and I don't want to disappoint our sponsors. I know they spend a lot of money to support us, so I just want to do good by all them. So before I even finished spinning out at IRP and wrecking, I was like, oh crap, I got Stuart seeing this. Like, I didn't want to get out and see him because I knew he'd be upset, and I was fine until I got to him, and then I just kind of crumbled and like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I tried not to, but I just don't want to disappoint anybody. That's my biggest fear in this. I'm not afraid of getting hurt. If it happens, it happens, but I know I'm going to wreck. That's okay. I just don't want to disappoint.
It's okay. Do you happen to have Affleck? There was a conversation there where with Becca Monopoly, which, as you guys heard, is going to be part of a series here with the City Garage Motorsports, which is out of Lakeland, Florida, as they're getting ready for their second race. The first race, unfortunately, with Becca, as she said, she had wished that she wasn't the cause of it, that it would have been somebody else or something would have went wrong. Thankfully, there wasn't a lot of damage, but if you guys don't know, especially when you're starting off in any racing series, when you only have one car and it's your primary car and your backup car, it's very expensive to put together. But thankfully, City Garage Motorsports end up putting it all back together, and they are ready for their October race. I know they have another small one that's coming up, but we should be visiting the garage here sometime in the near future and speak to the ownership and see Becca there at the shop, along with the race crew that's going to be there. But it's nice to know that there is locally here a crew and a family hard enough to put their hard-earned dollars not only behind Becca, but in the car to be able to make it into the NASCAR series. So congratulations to City Garage Motorsports. This is going to be something big, and it's going to be something exciting, I believe, in my own opinion here, as they will be taking on the challenge in October. Again, in Indy, didn't turn out exactly the way he wanted, but it could have been worse. Thankfully, the most important thing was that Becca walked away from the car to sustain as less injuries as possible. But just to kind of give you a little familiarity, goodness gracious, by City Garage Motorsports, it is a Florida-owned and operated team dedicated to the competitive world of professional racing. CGM is headquartered just outside of the World Center of Racing in Lakeland, Florida. Our leadership has a proven track record in building successful sports organizations and businesses. We are confident in our ability to create a successful race team in the ARCA Menard Series. Our experience allows us to develop comprehensive business plans that leverage various marketing channels to build a strong presence and engage with fans while being competitive on the track. We are committed to a collaboration and communication to ensure our partners remain at the forefront of their industry. And if you guys, by the way, would love to visit their website, you can go to citygaragemotorsports.com. Once again, citygaragemotorsports.com. I want to make sure I got that in there because unless we do something live sometimes, as I have so many things going on here in this brain of mine, I want to make sure that that interview went well. So Becca will be back with us again. Dylan has an interview with her today on his Racing Digest platform, along with Spalding Media Network. So that will be released sometime soon. And as soon as he releases it, you guys will also know as well for the second part in that series. And then, as we said, we'll continue to watch the team grow as they head into the next race in the Menard ARCA series there for NASCAR. So, Becca, we wish you all the best. We will see each other again here soon. But let's hope that this team and everything they aspire to do comes not only with God's blessing, but with the fans building in this organization as we'll continue to build a relationship with them as well. So that's why the racing series, soccer, there's a lot of the good things that are happening here on the Coastal Sports Network. Even though myself and my lovely producer, Debbie, my wife, she probably at times, honestly, maybe wants to kill me because I throw myself in so many different directions. Not literally, folks. That's all in jest. But because we're so busy and there's so much stuff going on, we're just trying to provide as much content to you, the listeners, the viewers, as much as possible. So look for that relationship building here, City Garage Motorsports, along with the Coastal Sports Network and Sports Radio 102.9 from the game, along with USF women's and men's soccer, and also with volleyball coming up as well. So there's a lot of busy fall sports, not to include, obviously, still Major League Baseball, the NFL, as the NBA and the NHL season kicks off. So there's going to be a lot of stuff going on here at the network. But as I start saying prior to this, thank you all once again for tuning in. We do appreciate it. Have yourselves a great weekend. Whatever you do, enjoy the time with yourself, your family, and friends. But more importantly, be safe out there. Make good choices. And we will see you all here next Monday as Martinez Company is live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10 to 12 p.m. Of course, starts off in the a.m., as I always love to call it, the mid-morning show. But more importantly, we can't thank you guys enough for visiting the website. And please, all we ask is download the app at sr1029thegame.com. The app is directly on the website. So just download the app so you won't miss a live show. And later on, the shows will be posted up there. As I said, I have something scheduled. So I will have everything posted up a little bit later on so you guys can go back and watch the replays. And I will put it out on social media so you guys know exactly when the replay is instantly available for you. So thank you once again. Don't forget, starting off the week, as always, Pete Shepard from 7 to 10 a.m. with the Pete Shepard Show as I co-host and executive produce his show. Of course, my show right here, Martinez Company, Angel Martinez, the host of Martinez Company from 10 to 12. And along with my hermano, The Drive with Q from 3 to 5 p.m. That's also on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And who knows, it could probably end up being back at 5 days a week. So because of so many different things and different elements that are going on, that's why you see the different time changes and shifts. So I always try to keep it as transparent with you guys as much as I possibly can. So with that being said, once again, have a great weekend. We will see you all on Monday. Enjoy.